As we walk through the streets of Cordoba, we are surrounded by the spirit of philosophy. And the reason for this is that we have three philosophers that are incredibly central to the tradition that are all born in Cordoba. First, we have Seneca, who was born under the Roman Empire, who we'll talk about just a little bit later. Second, two contemporary philosophers, Maimonides as well as Averroes, who are under the Muslim Empire. Now, Spain, as we've talked about before, this idea of the layers of history. We have a layer of history under the Roman Empire. We have a layer of history under the Muslim Empire. And these empires have left a lasting impact on the city. We're going to talk a little bit about the interchange between Christianity, between Islam, between Judaism. These three dominant world religions and how they come together, how they create peace and unity, and how they create strife within the city. Seneca was born in the year 4 BC in Cordoba, Spain, the same exact year as Jesus Christ. Both of these figures lived contemporary lives within the Roman Empire. What becomes really interesting about Seneca is that his father is a prominent leader in the city of Cordoba at the time, and he's sent to Rome quite young in order to be able to learn and be educated. Seneca is a part of the Stoic school of philosophy. Now, Stoicism involves a variety of different tenets, but some of Seneca's writings center specifically on what it means to live according to virtue, what it means in order to embrace hardship and difficulty, and how one should approach the fear of death. Seneca is known for a variety of works, including The Shortness of Life, as well as Letters to a Stoic, in which he gives this wisdom to future generations. Some of his most prominent ideas happen around the fact that time is what we are given during life, that a long life is not necessarily as important as a life in which you take advantage of the time that you are given you. One of his analogies that he gives is that no one cares how long a play is, they only care that the play ends well. So make sure that your life ends well. As well as many different philosophies and ideas talking about embracing pain, embracing hardship, sickness being simply a mindset, the difference between a man who has much wealth and a man who has poverty, who can be happy in either situation. It just comes down to this idea of mindset and when you can be happy. Seneca, along with this Stoic tradition, lives under the Roman Empire at this point, and eventually ends up being sentenced to death by Nero. Even today in the city of Cordoba, you can still find remnants of Seneca's works here. Here in a local park, you have a tiled series of benches that are covered with quotes by Seneca. And I'll link just a few of them here so that you can see what they say.
Study, not to know much, but to know better than others. Cruelty is born always out of weakness. To mourn death is to lie. From about 500 AD until the fall of the Byzantine Empire, Greek literature was largely lost to medieval Europe. The reason for this was because scholars could no longer read Greek. There weren't a lot of Greek resources available or Greek teachers, and the manuscripts sort of got ignored or lost, set aside for later. So anyone who wanted to read the Greek philosophers like Aristotle or Plato had to find other sources. Some of the only people who read the Greeks were actually the Muslims. Now the reason for this is that the Muslim Empire expanded throughout surrounding the Byzantine Empire and also into Western Europe as well. And so trade and knowledge was able to go in between the East and the West for them. And Averroes, who lived around the 1100s, was a prominent figure in that time of history. In medieval Europe, if you wanted to read something that was from the Greek philosophers, actually the best place that you could go was Spain. Spain was known for being a place of education and intellectual flourishing, mainly due to the Muslims that were here. Now here's a statue of Averroes, who's a famous Muslim philosopher. He's sort of like the Thomas Aquinas for the Muslims. He read a lot of Aristotle, translated a lot of Aristotle, and tried to incorporate the Greek philosophy into Islamic religion and culture, much like Thomas Aquinas tried to do for the Christians. Now, Spain at this time, like I mentioned before, was a great place of intellectual flourishing, and so there were a lot of libraries, there were a lot of philosophers who would gather here, because the Greek works of literature were only available in Arabic. at the time. They had been largely lost to medieval Europe for hundreds of years. So you either had to go all the way across the Europe and across the sea to Greece and the Byzantine Empire, or you could come here to Spain and learn Arabic. And that's what a lot of scholars chose to do. Here we are in the Jewish quarter next to a statue of Moses Maimonides. Now, Maimonides is just about contemporary with Averroes, and he's sort of the Jewish equivalent of Averroes and Thomas Aquinas. He also was a scholar of Aristotle and tried to incorporate Aristotle and Greek philosophy into the Jewish religion. He also wrote a book called The Guide to the Perplexed, which sort of codifies Jewish law, Jewish code.
Each of these men, Seneca, Averroes, and Maimonides, contributed vastly to the philosophical atmosphere in Spain at the time. Whether it be through the influence of Judaism, Islam, or Christianity and Roman underpinnings, we can see the ways that these traditions work together to create a rich philosophical tapestry.